retirement plans, to add to Gwen's question, what's stopping the government from confiscating those?
Well, let me take gold first. Only 0.8% of people in America own gold and silver coins, bullion, and shares. So it's really hardly worthwhile to go after them. Now, during the 1930s, particularly 1933, 34, everybody was walking around with gold coins in their pockets. It was common. People transacted business in coins, gold and silver. They don't do that anymore. So the justification for confiscation is very small, although I must say, the government can do anything it wants. If it wants your 3 little children, they can take them. I mean, that's how oppressive the government is now.
Absolutely.
And it's going to get a lot worse. I answer your question about retirement. There's a bill without a number in the House, and that bill would allow the federal government to commandeer private retirement plans, 401ks, IRAs, and exchange their value for government-guaranteed annuities. Whether they'll pursue that bill remains to be seen. There's another one in the Senate without a number yet, was just submitted about a month ago. And that one would limit the amount of money, no matter what your situation, that you can take out of those retirement vehicles and how often you can do so. So the government has been thinking of this. Whether they do it, I don't know. What are the chances in the state that they're in? Excellent.
I can only imagine. And, that right there in and of itself, I would think, now this is me talking, of course, but I would hope that it would stir some sort of fire within people and say, what the heck is going on, and put a stop to it. But I truly have to ask, and question that, because I just don't see the interest in people anymore. It's as if they're totally numb to the whole situation. Now, I see many more people that are paying attention, but I don't see many people out there that are actually being proactive and trying to make changes. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Especially if you can, Bob. I mean, based on your life experience, what do you see as far as people over the years? Have they become more programmed, I guess you could say?
Propagandized, dumbed down.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the case with half the population in the world, never mind the United States. But there are a lot of people all over the world, and of course the United States, where I'm on the radio, and I'm on all over Europe and Asia and every place else. And there are a lot of people out there who are saying, gee, how did this come about? How do I save myself? Who's doing this to me? And getting a lot of young people as well, which rather surprised me, people in their teens and 20s, which is very, very good, because they are the future of the country.
Sure.
But most of the people, particularly people over 60 years old, most of them don't want to know anything about anything.
That's a doggone shame.
Well, it sure is.
Because we need everybody to be able to do this. I mean, this is huge. And when we come back, folks, we're going to continue our conversation with Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster, and his website, theinternationalforecaster.com. Go there and peruse it and subscribe to help support his efforts. Stay tuned. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go away. Well, we're back, folks. This is Freedomlink Radio, joined by Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster, having a great conversation about the economy and the fact that it's in the doldrums. And now that we're back, Bob, I wanted to shift focus a little bit off the United States and talk about the Eurozone debt crisis. And in the news today, there was talk about France and Germany overcoming their disagreement on things and have agreed to, I think, $108 billion bailout of Greece. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that the Eurozone is doomed to fail?
Well, first of all, I spent a lot of time on radio and television in Greece, as well as with the editors of newspapers. And so I'm very familiar with it. Mm-hmm. What happened was that the bankers pushed very hard to be able to collateralize their bonds that they had and would issue to bail them out. That collateralization would be like put up your islands, your airports, and oddly enough, there's 236 of them in the country, and your seaports, your airline, the electric, gas, water, trains, etc. And what happened was the people protested for about a month and a half recently. They've been protesting for almost a year and a half. And they absolutely refused to allow the bankers to use that as collateral, all those things that belong to the Greek government, the Greek people. And the next thing was, well, look, if you don't do what we want you to do, and this was the Greek people talking to the bankers and the IMF, and if you don't do that, we'll default. So they turned the tables on them, essentially. And so I don't know exactly what the deal is, but it was put together today. I read it, but it's very, there's all kinds of loopholes in it. And we don't have an official version yet. And the one I got was leaked. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of subscribers in Greece, so we get pretty good information. But anyway, no, I think what they're going to do is extend their bonds from 5 years to 30 years, if necessary. Charge them 3.5% rather than these ungodly figures of 40% that have been trading in the market. And they are going to do another of other things which don't include the sale of assets. They're also going to demand that they cut government more. Wages have already been cut between 35 and 50%. They're laying off people like mad. And even under current circumstances, coming down the line with this bailout, first of all, they're going to have defaulted. There's no question.
Right.
And that will trigger $160 billion in credit default swaps, which are really insurance that was purchased by the banks in Europe that are holding the Greek paper. And the companies that wrote those credit default swaps, they're in New York City. So what that means is they're on the hook for $160 billion. And how they're going to handle that, I really don't know. I think they will, if the situation is the way I've just briefly described it in Greece and versus the creditors, we'll call them, they will be in a depression for somewhere between 25 and 50 years.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. 25 to 50 years, the poor Greek people. I mean, but I'll tell you one thing that's encouraging is the fact that they're in the streets almost every day, actually being vocal about this and showing their discontent. And that's one thing that I don't see in America, is that everybody's so incredibly lethargic. What do you think the main difference is between the Europeans and the Americans when it comes to that?
Well, I think the Greeks have always been outspoken, and they're very socialist. The man that runs the country he calls himself a socialist. I think he's a Marxist, Papandreou. And his father was a Marxist, was president during the 1980s, and he probably was one of the worst criminals that country has ever had. He looted the country.
Wow.
Everything that wasn't nailed down, he stole it. And how the people elected this guy, I'll never know. But their leadership is dreadful. And they've all been trained in the same places by the same people. And they all belong to the Bilderberger group. There's about 40 members of the Illuminati in Greece. And so they knew what was going on. I think Greece was set up. I think they wanted to really rape the country, and they couldn't get away with it.
It doesn't surprise me. And then what I like to hear is like what you were saying when they put all the assets up as collateral. Is that what they refer to the term privatization, when they have to privatize the assets?
There was one instance already. Deutsche Telekom owned a percentage of, we'll call it Greek Teleprom, and they were asked by government to buy the Greek government interest, and they did, but they paid 30 cents on the dollar. And this is what these international financiers and corporations wanted to do. And they've been all over Greece for the last month in their quest to vulturize anything that's standing in the country. And they expected to be able to buy these things for 20 or 30 cents on the dollar. And so I don't think that's going to work, but we'll find out when we read the details tomorrow or the next day.
Gwen, I was to say, you've been awfully quiet over there, Gwen.
Well, I'm just kind of confused, I guess. I mean, I'm not a real financial person, and I think the average people out there are a lot like me. I don't understand how when we are in the toilet financially, the markets seem to be maintaining themselves. Can you explain to us how that works in all of this picture, Bob? Why are the stock markets okay, but everything's going to hell in the handbasket?
Because the Federal Reserve in the last 2 years and probably the coming year will have created over $5 trillion. $5 trillion. And most of that money on a leverage basis was poured into the economy via the banks, brokerage houses, transnational corporations. And so what happens is that all that money was searching for an investment, speculation. I mean, some of these firms like Goldman Sachs, they got $40 billion. They didn't even need it. They just went and gambled some more.
So
and that's why...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
That's why the economy hasn't recovered, because everything is financial, not economic. They don't care about unemployment. All they want to happen is that the government stays together and the financial sector is safe. Well, what they don't tell you is the banks and the financial companies are keeping two sets of books, and they're all broke. Still.
Even after all that?
Even after all that.
Sheesh.
Well,
and they don't care about the American public.
What are we looking at? I hear a lot about the increase in commodities. What is that going to translate into come fall and winter when we don't have any crops because of the flooding? Can we
hold that thought?
Get back?
Absolutely. We will most certainly, because commodities is a big thing. So, folks, stay tuned. We're listening to Bob Chapman.